In today's math lesson, we're going to solve a system of linear inequalities by graphing. To do this really just takes two main steps. The first step is just to graph each inequality on the coordinate plane, remembering that you're probably going to be using your slope-intercept form of the equation, or inequality as the case would be. You have to determine if your line is solid or dotted, and then for your individual graphs, would you shade above or below the line? The interesting part in this little lesson is finding the actual solution for the system of inequalities. And that is going to happen where the two shaded regions actually overlap. So, when you are finished solving that overlapping region, that's going to be your only shaded region. It is your only solution region for the system of inequalities. Example 1. We're going to solve the system of inequalities by graphing where x is less than or equal to 7 and x is greater than -10. We remember from previous lessons that when you have x equals a number type equations or inequalities, that means we are going to have a vertical line that travels straight up and down through the x-axis at the given point of interest. So, x is less than or equal to 7. We know that this is a vertical line, and because this is less than or equal, we know this is going to be a solid line. And due to it being a less than, we are going to shade below, which will be to the negative side. So let's place that here on our coordinate plane. We've got +7 on the x-axis, and this is a vertical line straight up and down, and it is going to be solid. So let's get out your straight edge and do that. And since we know that we are shading below, that will be to the negative side. That means that all of our shadings would go here across towards the left. And we're going to do that kind of gently, not fully filling the space. So let's look at our second inequality. We again have an x equals type equation. This is still a vertical line. So x greater than -10. So this is going to be a dotted line, as it is strictly greater than. And because it is greater than, we know we're going to shade above. And above for a vertical line means we're going to shade directly to the right towards the positives. So let's start that. So let's find our x-intercept of -10. That's all the way over here. And this is a vertical line. So we're going to place a couple of points above and below just to help us with our straight edge. But this is a dotted line, so make sure that you draw your dotted line. And since this is going to be shading above, that would mean we would travel all the way to the right. Okay, so we saw in the introduction that the true solution is where the shading overlaps. So you can see here with the colors and with just the different directions of the arrows that our genuinely overlapping region is here in the center between our pink and blue line. So this yellow region is the solution set for this system of inequalities. And there you go. Example 2. We are going to solve the system of inequalities by graphing where y is less than -4 and y is greater than or equal to -9. We remember from previous lessons that whenever you have y equals a number as your equation or inequality, as it would be here, that this is going to make a horizontal line. So it's going to be nice and flat through the y-axis at the given point of interest. So let's start looking at things. On our first inequality of y less than -4, we know that because this is purely a less than, that we are going to have a dotted line. And also, because it is a less than, we are going to shade below. So let's place that line on our coordinate plane. Here's my y-axis, and our point of interest is that of -4. So we're placing a couple of points here on that same line to help us with our straight edge, remembering not to go just fully autopilot and connect it all. You're going to have a dotted line. There that is. We also know that because this is a less than, we are going to shade below the line. So we do that. Okay, our second inequality is y is greater than or equal to -9. Because this is a greater than or equal to, this is a solid line. And because it is a greater than, that means we're going to shade above. So finding our y-intercept of -9, remembering that we have a horizontal line, so I place just a couple of points here on that line, but it's solid. So we can grab our straight edge and just autopilot, run a solid line through that. Okay. Now we know that we are shading above. So shading above the line means that we are traveling upward. And we now get to answer our question of where is the solution set for this particular system of inequalities. It's where our two colors overlap, our shaded regions overlap of orange and green, and that will be here, right in between them. And there you go. Example 3. We're going to solve the system of inequalities by graphing where y is greater than -1 and y is less than or equal to 7x plus 1. We've got two equation types here. Let's remember what they are. Our first inequality is y equals a number. And we remember from previous lessons that this is going to be a horizontal line. Nice and flat through the y-axis. Our second inequality is a slope-intercept form of the inequality, where you have to find your y-intercept, and then you have to use your slope to move from there. Okay, let's begin this process together. Our first inequality of y greater than -1 is a horizontal line. And because it is strictly greater than, we know it is going to be a dotted line, where we have to shade above due to it being greater than. So let's place that line on the coordinate plane. -1 here on our y-axis. And we'll put a couple of points there along with it. Grabbing our straight edge, we're going to make a dotted line. Being careful not to run on autopilot of just connecting your dots. Okay. So now let's look at our second, shading, haha. So we need to shade above. just straight up from your line. There you go. Okay, now let's look at our second inequality, where y is less than or equal to 7x plus 1. Our y-intercept, b, is 1, and our slope is 7. We know that 7 needs to be a fraction to help us with our slope. It's positive, so it will travel up and to the right. Our less than or equal to inequality symbol tells us that we are going to have a solid line. And because it is less than, we are going to shade below. Okay, let's graph. The y-intercept is positive 1. There it is. And the slope is 7. So up 7 units from 1 to the right 1. To get a third point, just to make it easy to draw our line and plot more points, we're going to put the car in reverse, so to speak, and travel down and to the left 7 units. And there we are. So now I've got 3 points, making it pretty easy to break out my straight edge. We learned from our symbol that this is going to be a solid line, so you can run a nice autopilot solid line. And then we're going to shade below the line. So if you put your marker on your line, or your pen or your pencil on your line, below your line will be this region over here to the right. Below your line. And finally, we say, okay, so where's my solution set? It's where my two colors overlap. And that is here in this mostly the first quadrant, but not only the first quadrant and not all of the first quadrant. So it comes down to this y equals -1 and then stops there. And there you go. Example 4. We're going to solve the system of inequalities by graphing where x is greater than or equal to 1 and y is less than x minus 4. We have two line types, two equation types in this particular system. Let's look and see what they are. Our first inequality is an x equals a number type of equation where we remember that we have, as a result of this, a vertical line. So it'll be nice and straight, running through the x-axis. Our second inequality is of the format of the slope-intercept type, where we know that we have to find our y-intercept and our slope to help make this line happen. All right, so let's start with the first one. X is greater than or equal to 1. This is a vertical line. And due to the inequality symbol that we have, we know that the greater than or equal to means we're going to have a solid line. And because it is greater than, we are going to shade above. Which means for us, it's going to be to the positive side of the coordinate plane. So let's place that on here now. Our x-axis is right here through the horizontal center of the coordinate plane. Let's go find 1 on it. And now we can place just a couple of additional points to help us with our straight edge. So we can draw our line nice and clean. Solid line. There you go. And we know that this is going to be a shade above, so to speak. So we are shading to the positive side of our coordinate plane from the line that they gave us, the inequality that they gave us. All right, let's look at our second one. With our y less than x minus 4, we know that there's going to be a y-intercept of -4 and a slope of 1 because there's nothing visible in front of the x. we need to have a fraction for our slope for the rise and the run. Since this is a positive slope, our line will be traveling up and to the right. Our inequality symbol tells us that because this is a less than, and not or equal to, just less than, that we are going to have a dotted line. And because it is less than, we are going to shade below. So let's draw our line. Our y-intercept is that of -4, and our slope is of +1. So we can go through and just place those points, up one to the right one, up one to the right one, all the way through our coordinate plane until you run out of graph. And now, using your straight edge, remembering that we have a dotted line, it's very easy, friendly, simple to go ahead and connect those points every other just to make a nice, pretty dotted line. Okay, so we have to shade below this dotted line. And if you put your pencil, your marker, your pen on the line, then you can see that this region down here will be the below region. And the final solution set is where the pink and blue overlap. This will be our only solution area, region, for this particular problem. And there you go. For our fifth and final example, we're going to solve the system of inequalities by graphing, where y is greater than or equal to 6x minus 10, and y is greater than -x plus 10. As both of our inequalities are of the slope-intercept form, that tells us that we are going to need to start this process by finding the y-intercept and then its corresponding slope. Let's see what we've got. Our first inequality of y is greater than or equal to 6x minus 10 tells us that our y-intercept is that of -10, where our slope happens to be of +6. Remembering that we need a rise and a run, and thus a fraction for our slope, we place a 1 under it, and due to the 6 being positive, we know our line will travel up and to the right. Our inequality symbol, greater than or equal to. The or equal to tells us that we are going to have a solid line, and the greater than tells us that we are going to shade above. Let's go draw our line. With the y-intercept here at -10 all the way at the bottom of our graph, let's go use our slope. Up 6 and to the right 1. Up 6 and to the right 1. Again and again until you run out of space on your coordinate plane, just to help you make sure that your line will be nice and straight and clean. This is a solid line because it is an or equal to, so you can go ahead and connect your points nice and clean. We are shading above this line, so if you place your marker, pencil, pen here on the line, you can say, okay, what region is above the line? This one actually here on the left, which seems rather odd to some people just because it's on the left, and we don't frequently think of above as a positive thing on the left, but it's okay. It's going to be just fine. Let's look at our second inequality. Y is greater than -x plus 10. So our y-intercept is +10, and our slope, because there's only a negative in front of the x, is that of -1. Because we need a rise and a run for our slope, we've got a fraction by placing a 1 underneath of it. And because that 1 is negative, we're going to travel down and to the right. Our inequality symbol tells us that because this is only a greater than, there is no or equal to, this is going to be a dotted line. And because it is a greater than, we are going to again shade above. Let's go plot. Our y-intercept is here all the way at the top at positive 10. And then our slope goes down and to the right again and again. And you can quickly, easily fill out the rest of your coordinate plane with those points so that it is really easy, friendly, and simple to go ahead and place your dotted line on your graph. If you want to, you can just connect every other point. That's pretty friendly. Okay, we are told that we have to shade above the line. So above the line here goes right over there to the right. It's interesting. Above is not a right-left thing. It's above the line, below the line. That's where the shading is being looked at. But depending on whether or not your slope is positive or negative, it changes the right-left perspective. Anyways, we are always looking for the system solution to be where the colors overlap, which is going to be all the way up here in this tight little region there at the top of your graph in just this little wedge right there, because that's the only place that your colors overlap. And there you go.